So we're going to look at multiplying by fractions. And let's start out with this 1/2 of 1/3. What does this mean? Well, say you're doing a class project with some friends where you're baking a cake. And it's you and two other your friends in this group. And at the end of the project, you get to keep a third of the cake. A friend gets to keep a third, and your other friend, they get to keep a third. So the amount of cake that you take home, well, there's 3 total pieces, so that's the whole. And the part that you're taking home is one of those pieces. So you get 1/3 of the cake. Now, suppose when you get home, you just decide to share half of this with your neighbor. So if this is the piece that you have, you're going to share half of it with your neighbor. Now, the question we want to answer is, what fraction of the whole is this piece? That's what we're trying to figure out. Now we know it's a half of a third, and half of a third is 1/2 times 3. But we want to know the fraction relative to the entire cake. So how do we figure that out? Well, we've divided this in half. Let's divide the others in half. Maybe that'll help us discover what fraction this is of the whole. So here's that 1/3. Let's divide this in half. And let's do the same to these other 2 pieces. So now this is the piece that you're going to give to your neighbor. Now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal pieces of cake here. And one of these goes to your neighbor. So out of 6, 1 goes to your neighbor. So it turns out half of a third. If we ask, well, what is that compared to the entire original cake? It's 1/6, 1 out of 6 of the original cake. Let's try another one. Suppose it's oranges. And there are a basket of 4 oranges. And one of these you're going to take home, and the others you'll give to your friends. And suppose when you get home, you decide to share half of that orange with your neighbor. So what fraction of all the original oranges is that 1/2? Now we know that originally you got 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4 oranges. And you're going to give half of it to your neighbor. So what fraction of this is related to this? In other words, what fraction of all the oranges is this half? So divide each of the oranges in half. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 halves of oranges. And one of those is going to your neighbor. So this means half of a fourth is 1/8. Now, this took a little bit of time. And if we want to do something like what's a 23rd of a 52nd, drawing that's going to get really complicated. So is there a pattern, some kind of a shortcut we could use? Well, if we look at the number 6, it's 2 times 3. Well, that's awfully coincidental. And then there's 8, and that's 2 times 4. Well, that's really nice. Well, that's good for the bottom numbers. What about the top numbers? Well, 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times 1 is 1. So there's actually a pattern here that holds up, and it's this. A over B times C over D, we multiply across. A times C over B times D. Now, if we go back to our 1/2 times 1/4, that means we get 1 times 1 on the top, we multiply the top numbers, and 2 times 4 on the bottom. We multiply the bottom numbers, and we get 1. And that's it. That's how we multiply fractions. Now, you sometimes can have more work. So, for example, 2/3 of 1/4. Well, same thing. Multiply across. I should say directly across. And we get 2/12. Now, the more work comes in this. This is an even number, this is an even number. This is not a reduced fraction. So in the homework, you're going to find that some of the answers, you're going to need to reduce them. Now, because these are even, we can divide top and bottom by 2. And we get 1/6. And that's it. So keep in mind for the homework assignment, just because you've got the right answer, and you probably do, it might not be reduced, and that's why the computer might be rejecting the answer. So that's it for an introduction on multiplying fractions. Any questions, let me know.